Today at the Twin Cities Astrology Meetup, I gave the second in a series of talks on planetary dignity. Last month, we talked about when a planet is in its own sign or its own domicile, it's like being at home, and so it can accomplish more than when a planet is not in its own home sign. For example, when Mercury is in Virgo, it has extra authority to get things done. Today, we talked about the notion of exaltation. Some planets are exalted or held on high when they're in specific signs, like Jupiter right now is in Cancer, where he's exalted. And as a result, he can get more done in whatever house he's located in your birth chart. If you're a Scorpio rising, Jupiter right now is in your ninth house of higher education and astrology and international travel. So you could have good fortune around that for the next few months until Jupiter leaves Cancer next June. So there's a lot to unpack about exaltation. If you enjoy the video, like and subscribe. It helps people find my content. I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint now so that you can see some of the information I have to share about dignity. So we see here, this is the second in the series of talks I'm giving. This will go on for the next few months, so stay tuned. I'll put a link to the talk from last month on domicile in below in the comments for folks who are interested in following that. So here we see the idea of exaltation in this image. This is a figure of the moon being treated like a queen in the sign of Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus. So just to step back, because I think review is so important in astrology. So let's review just a little bit of what we talked about when we talked about domicile and dignity so that you have a big picture of what these talks are about. In Hellenistic astrology, which is what I practice, an ancient system that's really well developed and elegant, there are two ways you can evaluate how strong a planet is in your chart. One is to understand if it has any essential dignity. The other, does it have any accidental dignity? These are just some terms that can be helpful to know because they help you understand the nature of the dignity or the special qualities that a planet may bring to a sign. Essential dignity is basically refers to the inherent strength or weakness of a planet based on its position in the zodiac. And it's determined by how well the planet aligns with sort of the natural qualities of a given sign. So if we think about, I mentioned already that we're going to find out that the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. Well, this makes a lot of sense because the moon has to do with our body. It's what comforts us, it's what nurtures us. And Taurus is this earth sign that's got a fixed, steady, calm quality. It's about food, it's about safety, it's about security. And boy, the moon loves to be cozy in the earth sign of Taurus because it feels safe and secure. Our body loves to feel safe and secure. And so there you can see kind of a resonance between the energy of the moon and Taurus. This is the idea of essential dignity. It's about the planet's innate power to express itself naturally and clearly in that sign. And so that's the idea of exaltation. These other types of rulerships you see listed here are all essential dignities. We have domicile, which we talked about last month. Exaltation, we're talking about today. Later, we're going to talk about exile in October and then fall in November. These other notions of triplicity, term, and face, we may get to later, but I want to get to the most important ones first. I'll drop a little pin there and mention that I am doing a series on my YouTube channel about the decans in astrology. So if you want to take a deeper dive on the decans in your chart, which is every 10 degrees of the zodiac and the meaning of that, check out that series. I'll put a link below so that you can check that out. Okay. So that's essential dignity. And then there's this idea of accidental dignity. And that refers to the strength or weakness of a planet based on its position in a specific chart rather than whether it's compatible with the sign itself. And this depends on contextual factors like what house is it in? If a planet is in the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, or the 10th house, those are called the kentron, the tent poles of our chart. They're the hottest, most important, most powerful houses. And so planets in those houses have some accidental dignity. Other types of accidental dignity are what's called planetary sect, aspects, and joy. We'll talk about those in the December through March meetups. And then we have some other types of dignity listed here as well that maybe we'll get to if we keep going, depending on people's interest at the meetup. So last month we talked about the grounding of this whole system is based off of the Thema Mundi. It's the chart of the world. It's a symbolic birth chart from Hellenistic astrology that represents the cosmic order and what's seen as the ideal structure of the heavens. And here in the Thema Mundi, it always begins with the ascendant. The moon rules, excuse me, the ascendant in Cancer, where life begins. The moon rules Cancer. The sun rules Leo, and so on. So this chart here shows that elegant structure, and it also indicates which planets rule which signs. Again, this is what we talked about last month. Again, I'll drop the video below. This is the domicile. So Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and so on. But what we're going to talk about today, so this is just another slide about that idea of domicile for folks who want to review. And I do recommend for everybody, domicile is such an important notion in how to read birth charts and how to understand transits. I recommend that you memorize if you're into astrology and you really want to learn it, like piece by piece, or even want to deepen your understanding for your own chart. Memorizing which planets rule which signs can help you not only interpret your birth chart, but get a feel for the signs. Like knowing that Mars rules the sign of Aries tells you something about what Aries is like, right? We already know Aries is a fire sign, and the planet Mars, the god of war, rules the sign. Well, of course, then Aries is going to have to do with that assertive quality, that yang energy of moving out into the world. People with Aries energy oftentimes can be athletes, or people that are very physically active, or people that are interested in the sort of more dynamic, I want to assert myself in the world that Mars brings. So again, just memorizing which planets rule which signs can go a long way to deepening your understanding of the signs and astrology in general. So then let's get to that exaltation and a deeper understanding of it. So the first thing we notice with exaltation is while we have a planet that rules every sign, right? Every planet has somewhere where they have extra power by rulership. With exaltation, it's only certain signs that have planets that are special there, right? And a planet, the basic meaning of exaltation mimics the word, right? To be exalted. What does that mean? It means to be held on high, right? Held in high esteem. So planets that are in their exaltation signs are kind of treated as an honored guest relative to the topics of the house they occupy. When I say the house they occupy, I'm talking about the numbered houses from 1 to 12. So the first house, for example, is the house of who you are. It's the house of self. It's where your rising degree is. The seventh house is a house that has to do with partnership, one-on-one relationships. The fourth house is home and family and ancestry. And the 10th house is what we do or out in the world. It can have to do with career or where we bring our energy into the world. So that's the house topics that I'm talking about, right? So planets in the sign, if they're in a sign where they're exalted, you then look and see where that sign is in your birth chart to get a feel for what topic in your life is going to light up and maybe be a little special for you. And I'll give an example below in a second. But first, to finish out this idea of exaltation, a planet, when it's in a sign of exaltation, its thoughts, its positions, its actions have great influence over the behavior and deeds of others. And there's something called exaltation degree that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. There's also this idea the closer the planet is to its exaltation degree, the greater the honor it has, right? So exaltation is like a person being in his or own her own kingdom and glory. So one example might be, imagine that your moon was up here in the 11th house in Taurus. I want to make sure you all can see my cursor. I'm not sure you can, so I'm going to write on here. Let me get the width a little bit wider and we'll do a little circle here. So here we see the moon in the sign of Taurus in the 11th house. So somebody, if I saw their birth chart and I was doing a reading and I saw that their moon was in Taurus, I'd be like, okay, you've got a little extra energy around that 11th house. And then I'd think about 11th house topics. There's a slide we're going to give you later on that tells you house topics. But in general, the 11th house has to do with our friend groups, organizations, could be conferences. I have a lot of 11th house energy, and I'm always running around doing different astrology conferences and presenting in front of groups. So it could also be something like the astrology meetup that I lead, right? So people with an 11th house moon are going to have some special power around groups and organizations if their moon is in Taurus. Yeah, I think that's good. And let me just go back to the mouse and we'll go to the next slide. Just got to figure out how to get there. There we go. Of course, my little guys are still here. I'm just going to undo that. Give me 1 second to erase that. Okay, so exaltation degrees. This is just a slide. I'm not gonna, I mean, basically, the moon is exalted at 3 Taurus, the sun at 19 Aries, Venus at 27 Pisces, and so on. So you could compare if you have Jupiter in Cancer, you could look at your chart and see if Jupiter's at 10 degrees, it's going to be pretty powerful. If it's at 0, it's a little less powerful, but still exalted in Cancer. So that's one example. So it can be really helpful. I'm a big believer in when I teach that you want to understand the reasoning behind all these rules because it means so many rules or ideas or philosophies, we can get lost and not really understand them. But if you understand the reasoning, it can help the learning stick with you. And so for exaltation, why is it that certain planets do better in certain signs? And there's a few different reasons or philosophies people have given. They all make sense to me. So the first idea is that exaltation signs stem from the shifting relationship between light and dark throughout the year. When a planet is exalted, its power is increasing. Things are on the upswing. So the brightest planets will be on the upswing in the brightest signs, and the dimmer planets will be on the upswing where light is decreasing. And so if we look at this thema mundi with the exalted planets, we can see this really natural yellow arrow, like a lightning bolt. It reminds me this idea reminds me of the Kabbalah and the tree of life, this idea of spirit entering our body and then descending. It's not just spirit entering the earth, our embodied existence, and the way in which we take that creative spark and manifest something in the world. And so we kind of see this same vibe with the Thema Mundi chart of exaltation. We see the sun up at the top in Aries, exalted in that spot in Aries. It's the brightest of all the planets. And then we go to the second planet, the moon, which is the second brightest planet, it's exalted here in Taurus. Then the third brightest planet is Venus, still at the top of the sky in Pisces, a benefic planet, bringing good fortune, and then so on. We go to Jupiter, the next brightest planet, then Mars, then Mercury, and then Saturn is the darkest, dimmest planet. He's down here at the bottom of the chart, exalted in Libra. This moment we're going to see when the sun is, or excuse me, when the light is fading and the days are getting shorter, that in the northern hemisphere, right? In addition to this idea of lightness and darkness being part of the rationale for the different planets being exalted in different signs, we also have the idea of, do they have a natural affinity for the signs in which where they're at, or that they do? Planets in those signs have a natural affinity, and so one way we can see this is the fact that the day sect planets, that's a special idea in Hellenistic astrology. The Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn are all of the day sect. They're always going to be in a what's called a trine, which is 120 degrees or 4 houses away from the sign that they rule. So here we see the Sun is in Aries for exaltation, and it rules Leo 4 houses away. So there's this nice trine energy supporting the Sun, like the sun's ruling sign is supporting it in a trine. And so we see that, of course, the sun is going to do better in Aries. And the same with Jupiter, which is in a trine to Pisces, which it rules, and Saturn, which is in a trine to Aquarius, which it rules. So you see the elegance of the system here. You don't have to memorize all of that. It's more getting a feel that there really is a reason for exaltation. Not only allows us to learn, but it also allows us to sort of integrate and allows our analytic mind, I guess I would say, to integrate these ideas and accept them, yeah, because that you can see the elegance of the system. And then we see the night planets, which are Venus and Mars and the moon. They're all in a sextile to the signs that they rule. The moon is in a sextile to Cancer. It rules Cancer. Venus is in a sextile to Taurus. It rules Taurus. And, excuse me, Mars is in a sextile to Scorpio, which it rules. Now, then we're left with Mercury, poor little Mercury. Mercury is like a hermaphrodite. He's neither male nor female. He can play for either the day or the night sect. And his exaltation is in his own sign, Virgo. And then another idea of natural affinity, in addition to the trine and the sextiles, is we have the fact that all the masculine planets are in cardinal signs and angular houses. A cardinal sign is a sign that likes to start things. The cardinal signs are Aries and Cancer and Libra and Capricorn. And here we have those masculine planets, the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, in signs where they like to start things, that yang energy. They're also in the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th. And those are the angular houses, the houses that have the most power in Hellenistic astrology, hence that capacity to move forward. Another way, or another idea, just very naturally, is when we go through, and we're going to go through each planet, we're going to see the affinity it has with each of the signs it's in just by its nature. So we're going to start here with the sun. And before I get into the sun, one thing I want to add about exaltation is, for everything in life, there's a shadow side, right? Exaltation is something that can bring us glory and honors and people thinking we're amazing and good fortune in that part of our life. But, and also, exaltation can bring a shadow quality, which is, say you're somebody who has your sun in Aries, and it's doing really well there. You're really powerful. You're really assertive. You're shining in the world. Well, you could get a little hubris around that. Your ego could begin to identify with the idea that you were all that. And so one of the downsides for exaltation, as much as it might bring us honors and glories, we can get a little puffed up around that area of our chart. This is a good thing to keep in mind if you have any exalted planets, so that, you just might think or be aware of that potential so that you can pull back a little bit and maybe allow other people to shine if it's something like Aries, for example. One second, I just see that I got my slide off a little bit. So let's talk about the sun in Aries. The sun, as I said earlier, is the brightest light in the sky. And it's exalted in Aries because in this sign, the light begins to increase every day. It's the spring equinox, marking the renewal of life and vitality. Aries' bold and dynamic energy enhances the sun's qualities of individuality, courage, and leadership. In Aries, the sun expresses its peak strength, symbolizing the triumphant rise of energy, self expression, and new beginnings. And yeah, let's move on then to the next planet, the moon, which is exalted in Taurus. I've already talked about that a little bit. And we can see that's the next brightest light. And the moon is exalted there because the increasing light symbolizes this growth and stability. Taurus is a fixed energy where Aries likes to start things. We're now in the place or the mode where we've got a fixed, stable energy. Boy, the moon is changing all the time. It's our body, it's how our emotions. It likes the solid, grounded, stable energy of Taurus. And it also likes the nurturing energy. It enhances the moon's qualities of emotional security, care, and sustenance. In Taurus, the moon finds its ideal expression in fostering inner peace, comfort, creating comfort, and supporting life with steady and reliable energy. And then we move on to Venus. One person who has their Venus in Pisces in the 11th house is Martin Luther King. So he had an exalted Venus, and that exalted Venus actually ruled his chart because he's a Taurus rising. And in the area of groups, I can't help but digress a little bit. It makes so much sense because he was very successful around creating and being known for his capacity to change collective consciousness and to work in groups to change the world. That's the 11th house can relate both to how we think about the world, that idea of collective consciousness, but also groups and friends. And think of all the women in all of the churches across the United States that helped him achieve his vision. And I mentioned the idea of women because he had the two feminine planets in his 11th house in Pisces, Venus and the moon. So it really kind of doubles down. He had a lot of good fortune in that 11th house. Anyway, Venus is exalted in Pisces because both Venus and Pisces are wet, feminine, and receptive, which allows Venus's qualities of love, beauty, and pleasure to flow freely. Venus in Pisces reflects the pursuit of pleasure, connection, and emotional fulfillment, contrasting with Mercury's pursuit of wisdom and intellect. This is why Venus and Mercury must be in opposite signs. We see that here. As they represent complementary but distinct paths. So Venus likes to seek oneness in harmony or harmony through the senses and emotions, whereas Mercury is a little more intellectual. It's about reason and knowledge. So that's another reason given by ancient philosophers and astrologers for the placement of Mercury and Venus in the chart. So then Mercury is exalted in Virgo and it rules Virgo. And Mercury, Virgo's an earth sign that's about analyzing things, putting things in order, coming up with structures, telling stories, right? And Mercury really thrives in this practical, detail-oriented earth sign. Virgo provides sort of the precision and discipline it needs to pursue wisdom and knowledge. People with a lot of Mercury energy in Virgo tend to be a little intellectual, like to learn a lot. And we already talked about Mercury being in opposition to Venus. So then let's move on to Mars. Mars is exalted in Capricorn because it's a malefic planet, right? And it represents decrease. Capricorn's a dark sign where the nights are the longest and the days are the shortest. So we're getting dark here. And Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn's the last planet we can see with the naked eye. It's about boundaries, restrictions, hard work, old man time. What can we create and accomplish in the real world? What's the practical, real life possibility of manifesting something in the world? And Mars wants to achieve, but it kind of can be impulsive. It needs the guidance of that Saturnine Earth energy to enable it to manifest something real in the world. And it's able to do that when it is in Capricorn. Then we have Jupiter, which is a planet of abundance, expansion, optimism, generosity. And as I said earlier, he's exalted in Cancer, the sign. It's a water sign that's about creating safe places for things to grow and thrive. And so Jupiter really resonates with that energy. It also, Cancer's a sign where the days are the longest and the nights are the shortest. Things are growing, and boy, does Jupiter like to help things grow. So Cancer's nurturing and protective qualities enhance Jupiter's ability to accumulate resources and foster growth, both materially and emotionally. Those are things Jupiter loves to do. Yeah. So the last planet we'll look at is Saturn. Saturn's exalted in the sign of Libra. As I said, Saturn is this planet about boundaries and restrictions, commitment. Saturn likes us to commit to things. And Libra is an air sign that's got a cardinal energy. It's about diplomacy, balance, beauty, ensuring there's fairness and justice in the world. Libra is also a sign that can be about relationships. Libra also likes commitment when we commit to a relationship. So that's why Saturn does extra well in Libra. And Libra is this sign of darkness. When we talk about the light and dark, it stands opposite to the sun, the planet of light. Libra marks the time when days grow shorter and darkness increases, and that aligns with Saturn's nature, right? In Libra, Saturn's energy is expressed constructively through balance, fairness, and relationships. It promotes justice, commitment, and measured authority in a harmonious and equitable manner. So you can really, I feel like these explanations are really helpful in deepening our understanding of exaltation. So now I have a little exercise for y'all. If you stay with me this long, why don't you check your chart out? I'll drop a link to astroseek.com that can show you how to pull up your birth chart with a key, right? Pull up your birth chart and see if you have any exalted planets in your chart. Drop me a line if you do, because I'd love to hear. And then think about what area of your life you might receive honors, awards, and recognition. And so you can look and see, I've got a little description of the meaning of all the houses here on the right. And so if you have, for example, Venus in Pisces, this is a sign of Pisces in the 12th house, you might think about how does that help you around these 12th house topics. The 12th house is a little bit of a complex house, but maybe if you have Venus in Pisces in the 12th, you're somebody who has extra capacity to provide support, or you're held in really high regard around the work you do in the background to help support others. That can be an example. Or you're somebody who takes great joy in your meditative space, because the 12th house can have to do with hidden spaces and things that are removed from the world. And Pisces is a sign of deep spirituality, right? Or say you have your Jupiter in the 9th house in Sagittarius. That's a house that has to do with religion, philosophy, higher ed, and international travel. Maybe you're somebody who travels all over the world and has had really good fortune around that. Or maybe you're held in high esteem. You're a professor at a school, or maybe you're an amazing astrologer, right? So those are some of the ideas. I would love, love, love to hear from you all. Drop a comment and we'll have a little chat. And stay tuned for the next month at the beginning of October. We'll release the next video, and join me if you happen to be in the Twin Cities for the next meetup. I believe it's October 7th. I'll drop that in the chat. It's usually the first Sunday of the month from 1 to 3 p.m. You can go on my website. There's a link and show up and come join us in our exploration of astrology. So nice to see y'all. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It helps people find my content.